Hi, it's Dr. Noel Williams, Optimal Health Associates, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. COVID update. January 1st, 2022. It's a new year. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope people are safe and happy and enjoying our cold weather here in Oklahoma or wherever you are. I hope it's the weather you're hoping for. So, big shout out to OU and OSU fans because, Oklahoma football won their games. And so that's always good to beat the other teams, the Notre Damers and the Oregon people. But, hey, we needed a strong end of the year for football here. So what's going on otherwise? Well, tons and tons of COVID cases. It looks like Omicron's here and proliferating very thoroughly, unfortunately. We had 23 new patients on Wednesday and 21 new patients who were already in the practice that who had new COVID who called and we took care of. For the most part, they, again, are not seeming to get as sick. The few that do seem sicker probably are we assume Delta, and they're also in more outlying communities. The other big thing that happened just for us, again, is we've been wondering when we would have some true reinfections. And in the last 4 days, I had one this morning, and we had one on Thursday. So we've had 2 people who infected in last year, positive PCR, symptomatic, sick. Neither of them got vaccinated, and they both came down with it this last few days with Omicron. Neither is particularly ill, but definitely PCR positive. So definite reinfections, and we were due. So it kind of makes the whole science part, even though I don't want anyone to get reinfected, we do need the science part to work, that it's a 99% prevention of reinfection and not 100%. That wouldn't make sense. So we have 2 finally out of more than 1,000 people who've been infected. At least the science is showing. There was another paper which I'll post showing long-term T-cell immunity from infection that just was published in the journal Science. And again, there's long-term immunity from COVID. It's just, immunity is kind of a funny word, and maybe that's one of the things that causes people confusion. Immunity from serious illness perhaps is better, and it's a continuum. Some people with the vaccine are going to be completely immune to the variants. Some people who don't get vaccinated, a small group, will probably be immune to any form of COVID because they either have had all the coronaviruses, they have cross protection from other vaccines or other illnesses. So they're a small group. And then you have people who've gotten infected. So there's immunity where you don't get infected. You have enough immunity that, yes, you get the viral particles in you and they can reproduce, but they don't reproduce enough to give you symptomatic infection. So for all intents and purposes, you're immune because you don't know. Or you could have partial immunity where you just don't get that sick, or you just get a mild infection. And that's what the goal of immunity is, whether you've gotten infected or if you've got in the past, or if you've gotten a vaccination, or you just happen to have cross immunity from other things. So again, it's a continuum. And the thing we know about COVID now is that there's going to be breakthrough infections in the vaccinated group. We thought with, again, the original vaccine, in particular the Moderna and the Pfizer, but even the J&J and the AstraZeneca, there was a substantial group of immunity against the primary infectious varieties of COVID. But unfortunately, Delta came along and now Omicron, and there's a lot more breakthrough. But again, the good news is the South African event with Omicron's peaked and is coming down there. And so again, in that country, it's been very confirmatory that it was milder, not anywhere near the level of hospitalizations or serious illnesses. There keeps on being this debate by some people, epidemiologists, who are crisis blowers, or what would we call it? Who is the sky is falling?
Chicken Little.
Chicken Littles, who are like, well, Africa's different because they had so many they had so many infections, and maybe that's why Omicron wasn't as significant. Well, then that would mean that prior infection provided a level of immunity, which we won't acknowledge in the United States, so we're still going to be in really good shape. once we get through Omicron. And again, I'm not belittling the intensity of how sick someone can get with Omicron or Delta or any of it, but we're looking at a pattern, and the pattern is there's less illness. The problem is that it's going to be so predominant. And so if you have, 440,000 people a day popping positive versus 200,000, and if normally, 20% of people get hospitalized, uh, so if let's say it's 250,000 and that are positive and 20% are going to get hospitalized, which might be a little high, but that's kind of the going rate. That'd mean 50,000 people potentially could get hospitalized. Well, when you have 400,000 and you have an 80% reduction, so you go to 4%, you're still at 20,000 people getting, if I did that right. No, it's 8,000, I'm sorry. No, let's see, 80% reduction in hospitalization of 20 would be 4%. So 4% of 400,000 would be 16,000. Sorry. So it's a less amount, but it's still a heck of a lot of people. And that's the problem, because the nursing shortage, physician shortage, respiratory therapy shortage is massive in the country. If you look in Oklahoma City, we're well over 100 medical surgical beds down right now compared to last year. We could be as high as 150 just in Oklahoma County, and that's how it is everywhere. So we don't have the beds that we had last year, and so we have less beds, less staff, more sick people. It's winter, flu's here, and flu's making people sicker. It's the problem. So we just have to get through the next 3 to 4 weeks, and hopefully we'll be better. And just keep in mind that the current rate of hospitalization for kids is running between 1 and 1.3 per 100,000. The current rate of flu hospitalizations for children is 5 per 100,000. So again, don't get overwhelmed with COVID at all. And when you think about this multi-organ or multi-inflammatory system thing that happens with kids, it happens with other viruses too. So it's very rare, but it is a serious illness, but it can happen with any viruses. So again, I'm not belittling how sick kids can get, but again, overall, they're not getting that sick from COVID. So we can be positive. So what's the plan? The plan is we got to bear down. I'm always going to say, if you haven't been vaccinated and you're an adult, you should get vaccinated. I would not get the Pfizer, I would not get the Johnson & Johnson. You get the Moderna predominantly, or the Pfizer secondarily. If you haven't been infected and you haven't been vaccinated, you need to do it. Hoping that you're not going to get it is great, but you could be wrong, and there's not going to be a lot of sympathy for you. And again, I'm just relating the idea. There was in CNN an entire editorial today about the lack of sympathy that healthcare providers are feeling for the unvaccinated, who are first-line people in the ERs and pulmonologists and critical care people. And so it's not me saying it, it's what's going to happen, and it is happening, and I'm sorry. I don't feel that way. Don't send me an email or something saying I'm a rat for saying this. It's reality. And I'm just quoting what a CNN editorial said, which is what I said several months ago. The healthcare system is destroyed because of COVID, and so people are tired, and having more infected people come into the ERs who weren't ever vaccinated. And you always want to point out, if you do have to go, that you were infected, so they'll at least maybe get it, which would be incredibly rare anyway. But just understand the healthcare system's wiped out. In terms of getting tests, there's no tests anywhere to get in Oklahoma City, I think right now, because we have some people running around looking for them today. That will hopefully get better as the week progresses. Pretty low on antibody infusions. That should correct as the week progresses. We should get the oral antivirals this week. There's some nuances to using them, so we need that educational piece from the state health department done, which Dr. Pai is working on. So that's really where we are. If you do get infected with Omicron, you need to do your zinc pulse. You need to take your vitamin D. You need your vitamin C. You need your multi. Again, we're very, very, very strong, all of us in our clinic. You need at least a baby aspirin a day for 2 weeks. If you don't have any problems with aspirin, blood clots occur. And aspirin use has definitely, the trend of the data is a massive reduction in hospitalization and death. So that's the current stuff. Kim, are there any questions?
I have a couple. How do you feel about people getting various vaccines at the same time or really close to each other, like COVID, flu, and shingles?
I'm not into getting multiple vaccines all at once. I mean, the CDC may think it's great. I'm totally on board with them saying that. I'm a common sense person. I do things sequentially. Don't rev up your immune system too fast for too many things all at once. So if you're picking, pick them in order. So if you fall into a category where you need a booster, which we've talked about, those specific groups, I would get the booster first. If you're someone who believes in the flu vaccine, get that a week or two later. Get your shingles a week or two after that. I would not do all your vaccines at once that are each one of those three. That's my opinion.
If you're vaccinated for COVID, can you still spread the virus?
Well, that's a really interesting question. You can if you're symptomatic. We do not think you really do if you're asymptomatic. If you don't know you have it, you don't know you have it. So your chances of having a lot of viral particles would be very, very low, which is why, again, they've changed the length of time people have to quarantine after infection, because once you're asymptomatic, you don't spread within a day or two. And so, because most people have symptoms for 2 or 3 days, and by day 5, if you're clear of symptoms, you're done. So again, if you're asymptomatic, I don't think you can worry about it. Because you don't know.
If you test positive or have been exposed and you want to try to take zinc, but it gives you headaches, do you have any suggestions for zinc headaches?
Tylenol, and the other thing you can do is go to a lower dose of just take a Flintstone 3 times a day or 10 milligrams 3 times a day and take it with quercetin, and that might help the absorption because quercetin helps zinc absorb into cells.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about planes being safe, but what can people do while they're at the airports waiting for the planes?
Nothing. You just have to have the only thing that has been shown to be important is high rates of ventilation in open spaces. So if you're in an airport like the new Oklahoma City area, or Oklahoma City's new area where there's a lot of high ceilings, air movement, ventilation, that's a reasonably safe place. Number 2, take your vitamins. Suck. I mean, when we travel, a lot of times we suck on elderberry lozenges that have a little zinc on them, so that way we have that on our mucosa, which can be inhibitory to viral particles. So elderberry zinc lozenges are always a choice too. I think the big thing is have your immune system boosted. I mean, have your vitamins, have gotten your vaccine, do all the standard stuff, and you have to stay positive. But again, 60% of us are going to get, it looks like, Omicron across the spectrum, whether you've been vaccinated, not vaccinated, and then a small group of prior infected are going to get it too. So you just have to understand our immune systems are going to be, or either going to prove effective against it or get infected. And then once you're infected, you'll be immune subsequently to it. So I hope that helps. Okay, Happy New Year. And take care, and I'll talk later in the week. Bye.